What's up, weirdos? Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And before I start this video, I do want to say that I have a brand new podcast now. So my best friend Laura and I have a podcast called Sinister Sisters, Women in Horror, where we talk about different ladies in the horror industry every single week. We put out our first episode on Monday, and it was about Jamie Lee Curtis and Jessica Lange. So if you want to check that out, go ahead to your podcast app and search Sinister Sisters, and you will find us. Our little icon-y thing, it looks like this. That's us. And now let's get into it. The movie we're talking about today is Braid, and I am so excited to talk about this movie because I saw this trailer months ago, and from the moment I saw the trailer, I was like, this movie is for me. I'm going to love this movie. There is no doubt in my mind. And you know when your expectations, they get so high for something and you get so excited and then you see it and then it's just as good as you hoped? Yeah, I know, me neither. But that's what happened. That's what happened. So P.S. this movie is playing in very select theaters and also at sort of awkward times, but I hope they have a distribution plan for the future because it was freaking awesome. So this movie was written and directed by Mitzi Perron, and she was a model and an actress and now a director. It stars Imogen Waterhouse and Sarah Hay, who play these two friends that are running from the law, and they are going to rob their childhood and totally psychotic friend that has all this money. She lives in this big Grey Garden style house, and she is played by Madeline Brewer, my one true love. She is so good. So she's the one that was in Camp that I totally love from last year. Such a good movie. And she's equally as amazing in this. So they go to her house and they basically have to join this fantasy world that she lives in that they created when they were children. They're basically playing house and like doctor, but it is so twisted and psychotic and disturbing and so good. Now I'm just gonna read you the house rules that you can also see in the trailer, but they are: rule number 1, everybody must play. Rule number 2, no outsiders allowed. And rule number 3, nobody leaves. And that's just like, from there, that's like what you need to know going in, and it's just like, oh my god. Okay, here's specifically what I love besides me just saying I love everything. Let's get specific. Okay, here's what I love. First of all, the cinematography is insane. The whole movie feels like you're on like an LSD trip. It's crazy. The director of photography was Todd Von Hazel. Hopefully saying that right. And he did such an amazing job because the filming of it made me feel just as disoriented as the characters. Like sometimes you didn't know what was what, you didn't know exactly where we were, and it just felt confusing and like it made you dizzy, but in a way that was like, yes, like that's exactly what the movie is. There were a couple scenes that were literally filmed upside down, and like while I was watching it, I was just like, yes, exactly right. Like this scene needed to be filmed upside down. Second of all, these three main actresses are just like, they are so good, and they sort of represent this like toxic female relationship in this way that's like totally palpable. Like it's so well done. And I overall really just love Mitzi's vision for the film. I saw an interview where she was like inspired by A Clockwork Orange and like Greek tragedies, and that is like, I feel that deeply in the film. The movie is visually stunning, it is so twisted, it is so dark, and it's so my aesthetic. Like while I was watching it, I was like, this movie feels like it was made for me. Like the aesthetic choices, I'm just like, is me. I also love in movies when characters are like in and out of reality because it opens up the possibility of basically anything to happen, and so you never know what to expect, and that's really exciting in a movie. And that's how I felt while I was watching this. I just never knew what was gonna happen next, and it was just a blast. Okay, now let's get to some ratings. So for the scare, I'm giving it a 3. It's more of, you know, like a disturbing psychological thriller, more than like a true like horror movie. The gore gets basically a 4. There's a good amount of blood in this movie, and it's all just like so much fun. The cheese, a 1. I don't really find it very cheesy. And overall, I'm giving this movie a 5. I loved it. Every minute I was watching it, I was so amazed by what they were doing because I just hadn't seen a lot of it before. And this like super messed up game that these 3 girls are all playing together, because it's like, the way I was thinking about it is like, as a kid, all I did was play pretend. All I did was play make-believe. I would pretend I was like the Victorian times and I was having tea, or like whatever it was. I was a pilgrim, like, you know what I mean? Like I had all of these fantasy worlds that like I lived in. I pretended I was a witch. I pretended I was a wolf, like whatever it was. And I spent so much of my time as a kid in those worlds. And it's like, yeah, like what if you couldn't leave those worlds when you grew up? Like that's what this movie is looking at. And it's It's just so epic. All right, now let's get into some spoilers. Okay, so one of my favorite scenes was when they murdered the detective. It was beautiful. Like literally, it was like a gore scene that was filmed like a poem. Like, not to be over dramatic, but that's like sort of what it felt like. And just all the blood splatter was just like, I was like, yes. And then my other favorite scene was when they all enter the house for the first time and they just like jump right into the game. It's very startling and it feels so strange, but also so normal. And I think they set that scene up in like the perfect way where I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh, this is how it always is, but this is how it never is. It was, if you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. And that is it, y'all. So like I said, Braid is only playing in select cities right now. If I find out any more about the distribution plan, I will tell you all on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at girlygorehorror and also on Instagram and all the places, you get it. Once again, check out the Sinister Sisters podcast. I will link it down below. And that is it. Have a nice scream. Bye.